Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Town Hall Live. This is your director coming to you from the director's desk here at ASW. We're going to have a wonderful time here together tonight. Hopefully, not too long. There's lots going on, and certainly I know we're all feeling the challenge of the current situation here. But we're going to start with a little bit of an uplifting moment. I know she just came into the green room, so she's going to be surprised when I bring her right on stage. Please welcome Julia Ibsen to tell us about a recent project that we want to shout out to everybody. Julia, I'm glad you got the link. You found us okay.
Yes. The older one didn't work, but I'm glad you sent the new one. And thank you for inviting me to this town hall to speak about the fundraiser.
So let me give everybody a backdrop. So you're a graduate. So this is the cool part is we got a graduate coming back and joining us. You've
Class of
kept going
2021.
with this project, which we did last year, and now we've got results this year. So why don't you give everybody a little bit of a backdrop and then tell us the results because I know they all want to hear.
Um, I have a quick just presentation if that's okay. Can you
Yeah.
see it?
Let me see if I can put it up. There you go. Rock and
Can you see
roll.
it?
I
Yeah.
can.
I've been organizing the Great Orchestra of Christmas Charity at ASW for 3 years while I was there. And this year, Sophie Reitel from middle school, she wanted to do it as part of her MIP service as a action project. And she reached out to me, which I was very happy about because I'm just so happy that someone wants to keep up the tradition of doing this or organizing this at ASW. And I'm here to talk about. Just wanted to introduce the charity first. So it's the biggest nonprofit and non-governmental charity organization in Poland. It was created in 1993, and it raises money for children's hospitals equipment. This year, it was its 30th year of operation, so the 30th grand finale, and it's focused once again on children's hospital equipment. And by this year, so until 2021, they raised around 1,500,000,000 zloty, so over that amount. That's
Wow.
a lot of money. And this year, they're going for a new record. Um, at ASW, we've had a group of volunteers for the past 3 years, plus this year. The first year I organized it, we had 30 volunteers. We raised 30,000 zloty. In 2020, it was 32,000 zloty. And in 2021, we raised 45,000 zloty. And but of course, it's a huge success, the amounts that we raised. But I think the part that I love the most about it is that people are just so happy to be a part of this fundraiser. They think
Mhm.
that like from the feedback that I got, they're really, really happy to see people getting so engaged in the fundraising and everyone just coming up to them and donating money, and then seeing people on the streets wearing the stickers with the logo. And this year's finale, it happened on Sunday. So if you were on the streets of Warsaw, you probably realized that people were wearing these heart-shaped stickers on their jackets or hats. Or you might have seen this fundraiser on the news somewhere.
Mhm.
So even though this year the weather was quite
Pretty
bad,
daunting
and
out there. Yeah.
yeah, and obviously it's the middle of, I mean, hopefully not the middle, it's hopefully the end of a pandemic, but it's still the pandemic. So we had 15 volunteers from both elementary, middle school, and high school, and I am absolutely thrilled to announce that we had a record amount this year. We raised 51,000 zloty.
Oh,
So it's really amazing, and I'm so happy that people got so, despite the obstacles of just the current situation, they showed incredible commitment and engagement and perseverance, and they just raised so much money, and they were still happy. You can maybe not see it on the pictures, but I'm sure that behind the masks, there are smiles, and people are very very happy to be a part of it. And I'm just so glad to see that people enjoyed it the past years and wanted to continue being a part of this, because this charity organization is also very close to my heart. So I'm really happy that I kind of got to share this enthusiasm with other people at ASW.
So you got a good cadre of kids now that are going to be able to carry it forward. So we can now refer to it as your legacy project. The legacy lives on.
Well, that would be absolutely amazing if that could become my legacy, because I mean, I would be very, very proud and honored if that would be what is left behind when I leave ASW. I mean, I left ASW, but when I maybe I'll be forgotten, but the VOSP engagement will stay on.
So it's so good to see you, Julia. How are you doing now? And graduate and into fast first semester, and what things are you up to?
I'm actually on my gap year right
You're doing
now.
gap year. Okay, good.
Gap year. Yes, I graduated last May,
Yeah.
and now I decided to take a gap year to focus a bit on my modeling career that I had going on a bit
Really?
for the past few years. So I've been traveling a bit. Lived in Milan, and I also had to focus on university applications I was applying this year, and I'm actually very happy right now because I got accepted to Oxford University to study economics and management. So I'm absolutely super excited to start
Congratulations.
university next
Brilliant
year.
news. That's
Yeah.
great news. Thank you. That's exciting. I know everybody will be happy to hear that that's come through for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, dear, thank you so much for on short notice coming and sharing this with us. I had hoped that we would get an update on the project. I knew people are out there gathering funds and working on it despite the daunting challenges. So it's so good to hear that we hit this record and that we had a wonderful slate of involvement. And now it's on to next year and hoping that we can beat that number and continue to grow this.
Yes, I hope it happens next year as well, that someone will be willing to organize it. And thank you very much for supporting this this project, this event, and allowing us to do this so many years already.
Great. Thanks, Julia. Thanks so much again for joining us. We'll see you later. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
So there you go. We still have some wonderful things going on in the background, and it's certainly been amazing to see how we still continue to do this despite the challenges around us. Bringing in Dr. O. Dr. O's in the house. Dr. O.
Hi.
I know we're kind of doing this ad hoc tonight and wanting to give everybody an update. And I'll just remind everybody, if you're in the Facebook group, you can shoot your comments and questions into the chat stream and I'll watch it there. If you're following us on YouTube, you can comment, and I think I will see those comments as well. There was definitely, just to prove that, there was a welcome message already about hello, amazing community. So please, shoot things to us and we'll try to answer questions that you might have. We've done multiple presentations today. We've been spending our day kind of keeping people updated. I know you're out there crunching numbers across the board. What nuggets do we want to throw out there tonight to kind of kick this off? We're fresh out of the staff and we went a little bit deeper there, but what do you think is most important for people to know right now in the midst of what seems like a lot going on around us?
Well, I hope, Julia's words play out, which is we're close to the end of the pandemic.
Yeah, we all hope for that.
I vote for that one, and congrats to the entire team for the record fundraising here. It's a great initiative, and my family and I also support it for the past.
I was going to say it's near and dear to your heart. Since
very, very dear. My wife being an ophthalmologist herself, so this year is especially important. I've been talking for the past kind of months to you guys, and I think probably more than months, that when will COVID end? And COVID will end in the moment when COVID will not be dangerous, basically.
Correct.
And we thought first that it will not be dangerous when we will achieve herd immunity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this herd immunity became a little bit elusive because the virus is mutating, and clearly the new mutants are very different, or the new variants are very different from the previous variant. So it's difficult, a little bit like with the flu, to achieve herd immunity. You know, we're 100 years after plus the Spanish flu pandemic, and we still have every year pandemic flu worldwide.
Right.
But the point is that flu has, you know, a certain level of mortality, which is probably in the order of kind of 0.08%. And this is where probably if we get to with COVID, we will say, okay, end of the pandemic. It's not going to be the end of the pandemic. It will be end of the kind of the acute phase of the pandemic. And we will get to the stability phase, which will mean, okay, COVID will come and go. Maybe it will sometimes be a little more severe, maybe sometimes a little less severe. But as long as we have some kind of natural immunity from having had it, some kind of, you know, vaccination rate, which hopefully in Poland we will get to at some stage, and drugs which are effective in treating serious disease, we can announce, okay, we're no longer that worried. We still will be worried. It will be another virus which will be, you know, affecting us, but less so in terms of you know, serious disease, hospitalization, you know, the lockdowns, etc., etc. Now, Omicron seems to be that kind of a variant where we may be getting to the level of flu, you know, and looking at the numbers from the UK, from Germany, from France, where the vaccination numbers are relatively high, you know, we see that the case fatality rate, or the death rate among cases, is getting to this level of flu.
Right.
You know?
And that's first by knowing that we're not getting all cases counted because we're not getting all cases tested. Yes. So that number's higher, but the death rate is pretty solid.
Even lower.
Yeah.
So it's very good news. This is true again for the vaccinated population. Poland number is still about 10 times, 15 times higher. 10 times. You know, that's a lot. It's still a smaller number, 2-3 times smaller than in previous waves, but it's still 10 times higher than flu. Okay, and the 10 times mostly is driven by the unvaccinated population, mostly. So that's where we need to get to. And the numbers from the UK, where again we have a lot of vaccination, we have good data, and we have seen Omicron for the last kind of 3 months, let's say 3-4 months. The data is showing that people who got the booster, so 3 doses of the vaccine, have very good protection from serious disease with Omicron, even with Omicron. After 2 doses, not so good, but after 3 doses, very good. So you have, you know, countries like Denmark, for example, which has just announced, quote unquote, the end of the pandemic. They're really relaxing all the restrictions because they decided, okay, with a 60% rate of boosters already in Denmark, so 60% of people have boosters. We are not even at 60% for 2 doses yet. They have 60% and over 80% for 2 doses. They said, okay, we are not that worried anymore because we are getting to the level of flu.
In terms of that death rate and the
that death rate and hospitalization.
0.08.
So that's a little bit where we want to aim at, you know, and that's the goal. That's the vision. Again, for Poland, we're still we're still far away from the target, unfortunately, and many countries are also far away from the target. You know, not many countries have 60-70% booster rate. But we are getting there, and you know, as the sooner we get there, the faster we will be able to announce the end of the pandemic, as we know it today. I'm not saying this will be the end, as I said, you know, because it may be that there will be another strain, another variant, which will mutate in a different direction, because
Mhm.
Omicron mutated in the direction of being more infectious but less deadly.
Mhm.
We may see a different variant later on in the year or in a couple of years. So we cannot kind of lose the, the radar and all the kind of strategies that we have developed, like the Swiss Re strategy here. And
Mhm.
but we may be able to relax a little bit once we get to that level, and when we will say, okay, we're not that worried, because again, it's like the flu. It's still a serious disease. Flu is a serious disease. It still is extremely serious,
Right.
especially for kids. Here it's a different population that is affected.
Well, that's why we
But
always had our balanced approach to flu vaccination
yes,
right alongside, COVID vaccination, is that it just
exactly.
needs to be something we weave into the population if we truly want to have an impact on those rates.
Absolutely.
Dr. O, is this scalable by subpopulations? So if we say that getting to these rates gets us some degree of freedom, does that scale down to a community that is doing better than the community that surrounds it? Or is that still kind of a mixed bag in terms of the exposure still being significant outside and thus impacting the community?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit. We have, because today we have a situation where the vaccinated individual
Hmm.
with 3 doses can say, I may get sick, I may infect others, but I will not have serious disease.
Right.
Okay, kind of my narrative as a person who had three doses. And by the way, I recently had COVID, and that's kind of what I told myself, and that was the reality.
Yep.
And 99% of the vaccinated, that's what they are telling themselves. Now, the unvaccinated will say, I may get sick, I may infect others, and my disease may be very serious.
Hmm.
So that's a little bit of a different situation, because we still have, about 15 million of those in Poland.
Hmm.
It's and in this pandemic, this pandemic was about us. It was less about me and more about us.
Hmm.
And I think as long as we are, we can safely say that our bubbles do not overlap.
I'm just getting to the bubble, right?
It's getting back to the bubbles again.
Yeah.
As long as we can keep us interacting within the bubbles, and within the bubbles we feel safe, we may start thinking, okay, so maybe that's the time, after this wave, to say this is the time when we come back to a little bit more normality.
Right. Well, that's why I was obviously I get that question often. If we've got an 80% vaccination rate, we're still being impacted by a wave. So that community spread is
Yeah.
still impacting us. So people are getting infected. They are infecting others as a result of that. We know that. But the consequences are less severe. We were looking at the case review rates, and the vast majority of our cases have been mild, with only a few moderate and really no significantly serious cases, requiring ventilation, certainly. None of those. So you begin to wonder at what stage we shift as a bubble to a place where we say, well, the risk is not significant or serious, and so we can absorb that risk within our community. And I know we're asking that question on a regular basis, not now, because we're in the wave and the consequences are still unclear, but certainly that's one of the things we start thinking about.
And it's a little bit more for you guys. I think it's more a question of business continuity at this stage, less about safety and health safety, because this Omicron is so infectious that suddenly, if we release restrictions, you will have 50% or 70% of people ill within 2 weeks, and you will have to shut down.
Which is why you really can't go there. You have to think.
Well, that's a little bit the downside with that kind of spread in the community, that kind of infectiousness of Omicron, and these kinds of restrictions still in Poland. If we were in Denmark, it was okay, fine. no restrictions, no issue, no quarantine, no self-isolation. But here, suddenly we will have, we would have to shut down the school very soon and it would come in waves, right? So 1 week it will be 30%, then another 30, and then disaster.
Well,
so
and our concern was always our elementary population, which we're now vaccinating, but we're still kind of in the mid-range of that. We haven't gotten up to the same level we have at secondary, where we've got the 80% plus. Yeah. We're in that 50-60, understandably, because we've only had the 5 to 11-year-old vaccine for a very short amount of time since December. Absolutely. So, it's going to take us a little bit of time to get those all sorted. We do have the good news, which is, 215 plus coming on Saturday to start ticking away at that, as well as the boosters. By the way, we've got one question up here, and that's probably worth answering right now, is we've got a 13-year-old recovered from COVID from November. Third shot, they should be good to go, right? Anytime.
2 weeks after.
So I have heard this before, though, from people. The doctors seem to be vacillating a little bit over time from recovery to third dose and or even first dose. Some are saying a month. Some are saying I'm good to go right now.
I look at evidence, and there is no evidence. The manufacturers would be the first ones to put any kind of warning in their indications and their leaflet. Because obviously for them it's a matter of kind of business or no business, and they don't, so there is no restriction on that. In fact, any exposure brings your immunity to a higher level, and it doesn't seem that there is a ceiling above which it's unsafe. As long as you're healthy, you can get healthy, meaning you've had COVID in the last not 14 days, let's say. So you're recovered, you're strong, etc. Then it's safe to take it. And again, there's science is quite, I think, unequivocal about that.
And just to be clear, for our purposes logistically, we will have doctors here on Saturday, and they'll be evaluating and being able to answer this question. We have on occasion had a doctor turn somebody away from vaccination after doing the evaluation. That's part of the process. So anytime you're going in for a vaccine, there should be a doctor reviewing your case history and your answers to questions in order to assess against that leaflet, I presume, that you're qualified based on their standards for getting the vaccine. So that's always a part of the process. And that's the same for adults as well as it is for kids. We know that a vaccine's coming for 2 to 4-year-olds. It's down the line a bit, but we did talk about that today. And we're thinking that may be sometime later this spring, undeclared date, but we certainly will look for that opportunity as well. Vaccination seems to be our solution, that is something we need to be importantly expressing to everyone, that vaccination is a good thing and that it does, like with flu, it saves lives.
Absolutely. And I, to be honest, I do hope that, and obviously this whole pandemic still divided us in terms of vaccinations, unfortunately, despite what data is showing. But I hope that we will also improve the flu vaccination rate in Poland, because that was the key challenge, I think, in Poland, that there was only 1% of the population that was taking a flu shot. Maybe increased to 4% last year, but it was still abysmally low. And again, for the flu, it's less a question of health safety, although for kids it is important, but it is more of coming back to business continuity. Because if you have flu is 7 days sick leave, basically. Flu is very infectious, so flu means if a kid is sick, brings it home, everybody is sick. Suddenly both parents are sick, they're called sick leave. There are, let me put my hard drive on, my internal hard drive, but I think as far as I remember, in Poland, in an average year, there are about 20 million sick leave days related to flu.
Wow. Wow, that's a huge number. Wow.
20 million sick leave days. That's
Yeah.
a significant number.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's it's not always the flu, but let's say I generalize upper respiratory tract infection, flu, pneumonia, and others. But largely, it's most likely flu being the underlying root cause of most of these. So that's a significant economic loss, business continuity loss, etc., etc. So again, irrespective of the health safety, which is important again for kids, especially with the flu, because the flu can be deadly for kids. You have many other reasons to do it. And with COVID, we will have the same issue at some stage, because again, it's no longer going to be about health safety as much, although I think it will be, but it will be more about, again, adding another virus, which will bring in additional 20 million sick leave days, which would mean Poland will have to shut down for 3 months every year.
Exactly.
Not because of lockdowns, but because of people just staying at home sick.
Well, and that's the other, in terms of continuity, and I'm glad you brought that term up. That's certainly something that we're facing right now, which we talked about in Crisis Team the last couple of nights, is that staffing now with absences is becoming a challenge for us. So I just want to let the community know we're doing our best to keep things going. We've got we're at the edge of the substitute pool and what we've got available, and in terms of coverage internally. But please be patient with us while we work out the legitimate illness reality of having people out and keeping things going. And pushing the edge of our sub pool like this is always challenging for an organization. So while we certainly are still doing our case review, and those could trigger incidents where we would go to virtual school, we might also look at it from a staffing point of view to give us some space and time to get people well and back in the classrooms. And given the mild circumstances of these COVID cases, it may be very viable for teachers to continue to teach from home while they're on a quarantine that, by all reports, is longer than the symptoms typically last. And so, we're certainly talking about this every night and considering our options. And I just need the community to understand that we're on a daily basis reviewing what we need to do and what we might need to do, given caseloads coming up. Tomorrow we'll be telling. It'll be the next around this week of our 50% of our community, and then Friday the other 50%. But tomorrow will give us some fairly clear indication of where we're at in this peak and how much we can continue to sustain. Even with all the cases that we've been identifying, though, we're still coming in at about 89, 88% present attendance rate for kids. And for staff, obviously, as I said, we're on a challenging edge of our subs and our ability to cover classrooms. But in terms of kids, we still have 88% plus that are attending school. So, and we do have criteria for where, when that number drops further, where we might draw that line of needing some amount of virtual time. I also want to reinforce that if we do virtual time based on cases for any cohort or any grade level, remember that those are short virtual times. Those are 3 to 5 days, retest the population and return. So we will always be expeditiously returning that cohort or that grade level back to school following the normal protocols. We are seeing more family spread, and that's a factor of Omicron as well. Back when we were in Delta, Dr. O, I think we only saw, a 30% transmission rate within a family, and now we're seeing much bigger numbers. Almost the whole family is going down in short times. So that's another factor that certainly is attacking these numbers. But there is a horizon, and we are continuing to be hopeful that this surge will burn itself out and we'll get back to something that's more on the trend line that you described, to some incremental degree of normality.
Which also, this family transmission also reinforces evidence that the protocols that you guys have at school actually work. Because probably we would be seeing this kind of spread in the classroom as well. So if we had one case, we would have 18 cases around as well. If we didn't have masks, if we didn't have other things, etc., because that's what happens at home.
Right.
So I think that all that again that shows that, and we did, despite these numbers and despite deep and detailed analysis of each of the cases and the sources and the potential spreads and the mitigation, there is, I think, limited, if no, evidence that any of these is internally contracted. We've had a couple of cases, right, in the last few weeks, and we reacted. But otherwise, even with these high numbers over the last few days, none of them seem to be internal spread.
At least not on
the Omicron. Internal spread would be dramatic. We would be seeing
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And of course, it's always a judgment call because we have multiple possibilities of sources that we're trying to identify. But we look at the case correlation with others. We're always asking ourselves the question, is this related to that? Is this related to that one?
Yeah, exactly.
And unless we find those clear-cut lines, we're not considering those as internal spread. Well, any other questions out there? I'm not seeing much in the chat line tonight. So really, please shoot your comments or questions to us. Let us tackle anything we have left here. Otherwise, we'll make it an early evening for the two of us after a very long day. All right. Well, Dr. O, again, thanks as always. I appreciate your continued partnership and with staff today, as well as with our families tonight. I know everybody appreciates this and the continued detail of the work that we're doing to try to keep us safe through challenging circumstances.
Always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. Bye.
All right, everyone. So I'll bring this one to a close tonight. As you all know, we still have some information that we'll try to get out to you tomorrow. We're meeting tomorrow to make some decisions on how we will detail out Monday's activities in honor of Pani Olchak. We are all devastated by this loss, and we know as a community there's a tremendous upswelling of sadness and at the same time honoring of a wonderful member of this community. So as I say goodbye tonight, I'd like to just take a moment of silence in honor of Pani Olchak before I hit the theme music, and we'll again get more information out to you tomorrow about what our plans for Monday will be. But let me just offer my words as I did in e-notes tonight and as I've done during the day. We have these two juxtaposed events of sadness that can be both a moment of sadness that we all need to take and accept, but also an opportunity for inspiration. Both of these individuals inspire us, and their memory will continue to inspire us long after we've gone through the moments of sorrow and condolences. They will inspire us long into the future. They are warriors. They express themselves as warriors in the finest warrior way, and we will dearly miss them, but we will always remember them. So please take a moment. Pani Olchak.